Hello, everyone, and warm greetings from the IDP Education Office in Toronto, Canada. My name is Michelle, and I am joined today by Aliya Ali Shaikha, who arrived in Canada as an international student back in 2022 after completing 2 years of her studies online during the pandemic. So Aliya has recently graduated with an undergraduate degree in neuroscience from the University of Toronto. And we are super excited to have her here today to share her learnings from her international student experience in Canada. And we'll be asking her a few interesting questions. So thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So I wanted to start off by going back to your time before you arrived in Canada, while you were still a student, high school student in the UAE. And I want to talk a little bit about your research journey, your shortlisting of institutions and destinations, even before institutions. What made you choose Canada as a destination that you would consider to apply for higher education in?
Yeah, I mean, that was like 4 or 5 years ago. So just looking back, there are so many reasons why I chose Canada. So just a little bit of background. I'm ethnically Indian, but my whole life I have lived in Dubai. My whole family's in Dubai, and I was born in Dubai as well. So going back to India was not an option, and the only option was looking further ahead. Now, one thing that people might not know is that in Dubai, even if you're born and raised and lived there your whole life, they don't give you permanency, right? And unfortunately, the quality of education also isn't the best as you would want it to be. Like, the top university in Canada is top 20 in the world, but the top university in Dubai is like in the thousands, right? So there's no comparison. And honestly, like, I am the kind of person who wants the best and wants to do the best. And I always wanted the best kind of education. And I guess I also had the Canadian dream, or just the dream to like go abroad, be independent. And so I had 3 choices. I was looking at Canada, US, and UK, and also Europe. And back then I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So the reason I picked Canada was because of scholarships, right? Number 1. Number 2, just how safe it is over here, right? And back then they were really open to immigrants as well, much more than the US was, or even UK. And in the UK, they don't even give scholarships, right? The education fees is almost as high as it is in Canada and US, but the scholarships are basically non-existent, right? And then between US and Canada, definitely the safety component. I heard there's a lot of like immigrants here, Muslims, international students. And so when I was applying, even the application process with Canada was just a lot simpler compared to the US, where you have the coalition application and the common application, and they ask you so many questions and so many essays to write. And I was like, what's the point of you even doing this anymore? With Canada is much easier and giving big scholarships and similarly ranked and safer. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to apply to the US. And then UK, they don't really have an easy permanent residency path compared to Canada, at least back then. In the UK, typically they want you to go back to your country after you complete education. But in Canada, they actually give you a 3-year PGWP, which is a post-graduation work permit, which means after you graduate, you can stay in Canada and work for 3 years. Which was a big advantage. And then you work for another year, then you can get your PR. So the whole process was basically a lot easier. So I think those were the main reasons that I chose Canada over the other countries. I think they were just like, it felt less risky to go to Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your personal story and, how you came about deciding on Canada as well as a destination that you would consider. Now, I'm wondering, there have been a lot of changes announced this year, impacting international students and their choices. And I'm just wondering, fast forward 4+ years, since you were, going through your research and application process, have the reasons for you choosing Canada at that time changed today?
I would say not at all. Like, even though things have gotten harder, Canada as a whole is still the same. The education is the same. The opportunities are the same. The scholarships are the same. The friendliness to immigrants is the same. Not once have I faced discrimination here. Trust me. And I'm a hijabi, Muslim, immigrant, brown. Like, there's just so much about me that is different. But despite that, not once have people ever like looked me in the wrong way or called me out for being a Muslim, hijabi, immigrant, brown. Like, never. And maybe it's because I'm in Toronto and I'm in a very like nice, the community is just amazing here. I don't know how it is in other places, but they're honestly a lot more welcoming. I don't know how it is in the US, etc. But here, I can tell you confidently that they're very supportive and there's no discrimination. At least I have not faced. Safety as well. Thankfully, I have not faced any safety concerns. Not that I would encourage anybody to go out at 10 p.m. But like in general, if I'm going to university commuting, I haven't personally faced anything. So that remains the same even throughout the 4 years. And, you know, even the scholarships, like I got, alhamdulillah, a $180,000 scholarship as an entrance award, right? Like as a high school, I got it in my first year throughout the 4 years. That still remains. That is still there. And there are almost like majority of universities here, the good universities, it doesn't have to be the top 10. Even they still give you scholarships, right? Like back when I applied, I actually applied to 7 different universities in Canada. Like,
so that was going to be my next question.
Okay.
So don't take it away yet.
Okay. Okay. I'll backtrack a little bit.
But yeah, in terms of the initial reasons, you know, I mean, outside of the scholarship piece, you know, reasons that you would think about Canada, and you did mention the postgraduate work permit opportunities that's available to graduating students in Canada. Now, something I wanted to highlight is that despite all the changes that have taken place this year across policy, university graduates, regardless of what you come to study in Canada, are still eligible for a 3-year work permit upon graduating successfully. So for university-bound students, nothing, you know, in that respect has changed. You would still be eligible, you know, to apply for a work permit upon graduation. So in that respect, going back to the earlier question of whether the reasons for you choosing Canada would change, if I could say, or I could add that, you know, in terms of postgraduate work opportunities, nothing has changed for university-bound students.
Yeah. Honestly, like, obviously things have gotten harder, but things are hard for everybody. It's not just for international students. The job market is bad in general. So even the normal people that are not immigrants are struggling too. And that's irrespective of your identity. That really depends on your skills, how you present yourself, how passionate you are, what extracurricular activities you've participated in, volunteer opportunities, work experience. Like, all of these add up and make you who you are. And it doesn't really depend too much on your status because you can work. You have that PGWP.
That's right. And also as an international student, you are allowed to work on campus for 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more. Actually, they expanded it to 24 hours a week as well. So there's lots of opportunities available. And as Aliya said, I think it's about how you utilize them. So now let's talk about scholarships.
Right,
so
sure.
Aliya gave it away, but she is the recipient of, or was the recipient of, one of the University of Toronto's top scholarships, which was you know, at $180,000 per year. The total was $180,000. And what I would like to know from you, and if you could share some advice for students who are looking to apply for merit-based scholarships such as this or any other, you know, what does the process look like? Where do you first of all search for these scholarships? How do you prepare yourself for the scholarship, and then how do you apply for the scholarship? So it's a 3-pronged question. But I think some valuable advice that you could share with us.
Yeah. Number 1 advice. Okay. This is simple, but some people, they take it very lightly. It's actually your grades in high school. Okay, because what I got was a merit-based scholarship, so it wasn't even based on my extracurriculars or anything like that. It was purely based on my grades, right? So I did the British curriculum, I did A levels, and I did really well. I got top scores, and that was enough. And it was automatic, honestly. I didn't even have to apply for it at that time. I think now there's an application process. And so it was really crazy. And so people say that, grades don't define you, but in reality, like, it's pretty darn important, So that's one of the scholarships. Obviously so what I got was the International Scholar Award. There are different amounts. There's 180, there's 100K, I think there's 80K as well. At U of T specifically, there is the Lester B. Pearson Scholarship as well. That's full ride. So you get tuition and living expenses completely covered for your entire 4-year degree program. That one's very competitive though. And for that, you need to be like an outstanding student who has done like crazy community service, and things like that. So actually that was what I had applied for initially, and I got rejected. And then this scholarship was a complete shocker. Obviously I applied at other universities too, right? Like 6 other universities. Some of them had applications, some of them were automatic, again, based on my grades. And even online, like if you just Google search, scholarship opportunities in Canada, right? There's so much that is available now. All you have to do is research and put some effort into it, right? Even beyond scholarships, there's even financial aid. Some universities like UBC, I know they had financial aid. I had applied for it. I didn't get it, but I know UBC has it too. So it's really about just looking up these opportunities. They're there, but you just have to find them.
That's some great advice, Aliya. And I think, as you said, I think you mentioned it earlier on when you were talking about why you considered Canada as one of your top study destinations. You mentioned the availability of scholarships, and not just at institutions like U of T, UBC, but also at, all sorts of universities in Canada. There is a huge selection, and lots of them are sometimes unknown. And so it's really about doing the proper research and scoping out those universities and those opportunities that are available there. In fact, they're probably more eager and more willing to sponsor you as a student because they want to have, they see the value in having international representation at their campuses and, just having that diversity on campus as well.
Talking about diversity, I just want to quickly add on to that. Diversity and inclusion is something that you hear a lot in Canada, in Canadian institutions, in the workplace. And honestly, it's not just words. Like, I'll be honest, they have particular quotas towards the number of people that they want to recruit or have in their universities that are part of the diverse population. And some people make fun of it, but truly it's actually a privilege because not every country has this, and because we're different, it's actually their way of empowering us, and we should be grateful for it. There are distinct opportunities and distinct scholarships for immigrants, or maybe for someone that is from a diverse background. U of T is building a whole indigenous building dedicated to indigenous communities. So these are not things to be taken lightly.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. So there's so much that we can keep talking about here, but what I really wanted to focus on too were some of the highlights from your student experience in at U of T, but generally in Canada. And also if you could then speak to some of the initiatives that you've been involved in and how Canada has really helped you, reach the point that you're at today.
Wow, that's a loaded question. We could go on and on about it, but highlights. Okay, there's just so many. U of T. First of all, getting into U of T itself was the biggest highlight because top 20 in the world, and then getting a 180K scholarship was just unexpected completely. And then trust me, the professors at U of T are amazing. I have never seen professors that are this knowledgeable, and they're not just professors, they're like a friend to you, they're a mentor. You can reach out to them outside of the classroom, and it's just not U of T, it's the Canadian culture where they're just so approachable and so knowledgeable and just so friendly. So I think that was like a big shock coming from Dubai, because things are just way different there, right? So that was one. And then number two is just the community. Like, honestly, I was shocked because I thought that I wouldn't have a community here. I couldn't settle down, but I think people are just so welcoming, and I was able to find my own set of like Muslims and brown people and like international students. So I think the community is really strong here as well. And then in terms of highlights, like, I think that U of T has just given me so many opportunities in terms of, I've even won like a few pitch competitions, come first place for my startup while I was a student. So students that are interested in entrepreneurship, there are definitely a lot of opportunities here. So I got like $10,000 when I came first place once, and then I got 2 scholarships as well, around like $20,000. So there's a lot beyond that initial scholarship as well. There are a lot of opportunities, at least at U of T. So, and then in terms of the things that I'm involved in, so as I said, I started a startup when I was, I think, in my second or third year of university. Right now, I have this nonprofit thing called Rate My Courses, where I'm helping students with a platform to like, rate and review courses. I also got a job very soon after graduating, thankfully, and it was mainly through networking. So I work in a startup as well. I'm a junior product manager. And we basically help people with getting their PR, right? Immigration, actually. So it fit perfectly for me because I'm an immigrant who wants my PR.
But it has nothing to do with neuroscience.
Yes. So interestingly about that, so I love neuroscience. Like, I've always been interested and fascinated by the brain. I couldn't get a job there though because I needed to do a master's. And I didn't have any research experience, and you really need research experience. So one advice I would give, like, if you're into research, really try to get research experience when you're in university. Take like research courses. I didn't do that. I didn't know. Nobody was there really to tell me. So I couldn't get any research jobs because they were like, you need a master's minimum. Like, you're competing with PhD students in neuroscience, and I didn't really have the money, honestly, to afford it. And I was like, why let the 3-year PGWP go to waste? Because that you only get after undergrad, and that will expire. Well, you get it after master's too, but I wanted to get some work experience. I was like, it's not worth it. And then I got a good opportunity.
Which is another area of interest for you.
100%. It is, I just kind of interested in a lot of things, but you're just exploring at this point, right?
And neuroscience is a very niche sort of discipline.
100%. I mean, I was just interested, so I was like, why not?
Right.
Another big reason I came to Canada, I forgot to mention this, is actually the Canadian education system is very different than how it works in Europe. Okay, in the sense that, for example, when I was young, I wanted to do medicine. Okay. But I wasn't 100% sure because my parents, like my dad, used to question me and challenge me, like, "What, are you sure you want to do medicine? Like, if you want to help people, why study your whole life? You can do business, you can do other things." And in Europe, or even in general, when you're going to go to med school, you immediately go after high school. Okay. And that's like not enough time to decide if you want to be a doctor, right? That's too early. You're like 15, 16 at that point. But in the Canadian system, how it works is that, and even in US, you actually do your undergrad first for 4 years. Then you apply to law school or med school or whatever. So you have that 4-year period to decide whether you really want to get into that field. And you take courses, pre-med courses, whatever, to really understand whether you want to dedicate the rest of your life into that. And this is a whole life decision that you can't really make at the age of 15, 16. You need some time. You need a network, mentorship. That was another big reason. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so to wrap this conversation up, I just wanted you to sort of spend a couple of minutes, sharing some advice with international students who are looking to choose Canada as their ultimate or their final study destination. They're sort of in the process of applying and they are ready to sort of take the next steps, but are perhaps a little hesitant. Any advice you can give to them?
Don't be hesitant. Never. Like, just do it. You never be hesitant to opportunities. You always just apply to those opportunities and then forget about it. And then when it comes your way, and then you decide kind of how you want to take
That's
it up.
great advice.
Actually, like, you should consider Canada as an option, but not your only option. Apply to other places too. What are you losing? Right? This is about your future. Like, this is about where you're gonna like live for the majority of your life potentially, right? So apply to US, UK, Canada, like Europe, wherever you want, and then whoever gives you the best opportunities, whoever gives you the best scholarships, you choose that way. So, for example, I applied to 7 universities in Canada as a backup to backup, just in case I didn't get into U of T. Because U of T, I had to pay like $50,000 per year. I was like, okay, what if I don't get the scholarship? Then what? Like, what's my backup, right? So just because of that, I had applied everywhere else. And then thankfully, because I got the scholarship, that's the only reason I accepted U of T. Otherwise, I couldn't afford it, right? So my advice is that apply to like your top, let's say top 5 places, or top 3 even in different like countries. In the top, let's say 3 countries, go from there. And let's say if you consider Canada and you choose Canada, number 1, firstly, learn how to layer up.
It's -7 today.
Yeah, it gets pretty cold. Not that you cannot survive. Like, you just have to over time like learn how to layer up. I'm still learning, but that's extremely important. In terms of jobs and housing, like, as I said, these are just opportunities. You have to put yourself out there. What makes you different, even if you start at the high school level in terms of gaining experience, learning new skills, that's what sets you apart for all these scholarships, right? And yeah, I think just like put yourself out there and be out of the norm. And one more thing I want to mention is that if you're someone from my background, like from the Middle East or Asia, there are no bidets here. Disclaimer, bidets is like shower in the toilet. I think this is an extremely important thing to mention because it's a whole life-changing thing that is very important, at least from where I come from. It's a total shock that nobody talks about. Like, no university, nobody mentioned this to me. So make sure to just know that and carry a water bottle around with you. But yeah, we can end with that.
Well, thank you, Aliya. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And I think you shared some wonderful advice for incoming international students to Canada, but, also students who are looking to apply anywhere and seeking, good opportunities, good study opportunities. And again, I am so, sort of happy that we got a chance to connect. And, again, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.